you are having a fantastic time at the Swell Summit. Our next session leads are Courtney, Fortin, and Nick Brdar. They will be speaking about peer support and empathetic listening. Mr. Brdar is a third-year student at the University of Michigan currently studying neuroscience and psychology. He is the Director of Program Development for the Wolverine Support Network, WSN. WSN is a student-led organization that hosts weekly peer-led support groups for over 500 students each year. Courtney Fortin is the Assistant Director of WSN. Without further ado, I present Peer Support and Empathetic Listening with Nick Brdar and Courtney Fortin.
Thank you for the introduction, and welcome everybody. Today, we are here on behalf of Wolverine Support Network, a student organization at the University of Michigan, and will be emphasizing the value of peer support and empathetic listening for high school and college students. My name is Nick Brdar, and I use he, him, his pronouns. Currently, I am WSN's Director of Program Development. Outside of WSN, I'm also involved with U of M's chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, as well as volunteering in a research lab that studies sex differences in addiction under Dr. Jill Becker. Following undergrad, I hope to pursue a dual degree to become a physician scientist specializing in adolescent psychiatry and suicide prevention. Today, I'm also joined by WSN's Assistant Director of Development, Courtney Fortin.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm a junior studying UX design and business. For me, music has always been something that I've used to help my mental health, so in the future, I hope to be a UX designer or product manager for some music streaming service like Spotify or Apple Music. Within Wolverine Support Network, my role primarily focuses on designing marketing materials, sending out a biweekly newsletter, and establishing our first ever podcast.
Today we're going to be touching on a few different topics. First, we're going to introduce you to WSN and WSN's model. Then we're going to start talking about peer support and what we've seen from Wolverine Support Network's model that supports the idea that peer support is so very important in student mental health. Next, we're going to dive into the bulk of our presentation, which is about empathetic listening and learning to open your ears and your heart. And lastly, we'll wrap up with a few slides and leave our contact information if you have any questions for us or want further information on these topics. As I mentioned earlier, Wolverine Support Network is a student organization at University of Michigan, sponsored by Counseling and Psychological Services. Our mission is to empower students to support each other's identity, mental well-being, and day-to-day lives. To start to give you a glimpse into what our organization does, we'll begin by talking about who we are as an organization. And to put it simply, we're a community of people at U of M who have come together to take charge of our mental health. We have a team of 7 directors, 80 group leaders, and over 20 organizing team members. And the heart and soul of our organization is our nearly 450 members this semester. Wolverine Support Network facilitates over 30 peer-led support groups across campus for both undergraduate and graduate students that fit within students' own availability. WSN also hosts community building events to foster connection among those in the WSN community and beyond. Our weekly groups are led by trained peer facilitators and aim to create a space where members can promote their own and each other's emotional and mental well-being in an accessible, confidential, and inclusive environment. Our community building events are open to both WSN members and the Michigan student body at large, and they're aimed toward fostering a culture of support on campus and destigmatizing mental health. Events are diverse in hopes of appealing to a wide variety of students, anything from a game night to a book club. One key factor of WSN's model is that all groups, events, and programming are cost-free. We see that a lot of time there are financial barriers to accessing mental health care, and we hope that WSN serves as a bridge to overcome these barriers and protect one's mental health. And simply put, we do it because life happens. WSN was founded in 2015 by a group of students who recognize the social stigmas, financial burdens, and timing inconveniences associated with discussing student mental health and well-being. Ignited by the loss of 2 fellow students at the University of Michigan to suicide and their own battles in mental health, 4 students came together to develop a resolution. And simply put, their solution was honest and open peer-to-peer dialogue. While numerous other mental health-related resources exist, research shows that undergraduate students provide the most potent source of influence on fellow undergrad students' affective and cognitive growth and development during college. Further research indicates peer support programs are especially helpful when focused on assisting students with social, emotional, or academic problems, and provide growth and learning opportunities for both the mentors and mentees, resulting in a double impact. Peer support programs can also help to create a positive school culture and connectedness to the school community to both the mentors and mentees. Thus, the model capitalizes on peer-to-peer influence with the goal to inspire increased self-awareness, vulnerability, and resilient high-quality connections. WSN has grown immensely over the past 5 years, with large milestones including adding graduate student peer support groups to our model, expanding our undergrad presence to over 30 groups per semester, and helping expand the model to other campuses across the nation with the help of the nonprofit organization The Support Network that was founded after WSN's model. As an accessible resource in terms of location, time to entry, and accommodation of existing commitments, WSN aims to continue expanding on the Michigan campus in the future. And before we move on to talk about what it means to have these empathetic conversations, we're going to expand on that quick idea of peer support and the importance of it. Everyone has that need to belong and the desire to feel not alone, and those desires are especially expressed during high school and college student times. According to our survey data, 73% of members feel that they're part of a community with WSN. And the data suggests that adolescents and young adults turn to their peers first for support, which is why models like ours are so important. Additionally, almost 30% of our leaders have used Question, Persuade, Refer, which is our counseling and psychological services training program for suicide prevention. These data support the idea that we are both addressing mental health needs on campus and supporting students' mental health, and also directly saving lives that could have been lost to suicide. Taking a step back, we're looking at some student responses in our annual survey that asked them why they joined WSN. So as you can see on the slide, one student said, "A very peaceful and calm hour of every week." Another student, "Having a dedicated time to focus on my mental health and talk about whatever was going on in my life." Meeting new people, unplugging from devices and work, and being present for an hour. Support and open conversation. Having an outlet outside of my social circle. It was just nice to have a space to talk during the week and feel like I'm being heard. People from different backgrounds sharing similar experiences. Making friends, a place to laugh and smile.
Before getting into empathetic listening, let's start by defining what empathy really is. Today we're going to be showing you a video put together by Brene Brown, a research professor at the University of Houston. In this video, she helps explain what empathy is and how to create a genuine empathetic connection with people.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, "I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed." And then we look and we say, "Hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone." Sympathy is, "Ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich?" Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Hopefully that video was helpful and everyone gained a better understanding of empathy. Now, Nick is going to start talking about some do's and don'ts for approaching conversations.
How you come off as a person is one of the most important characteristics you have as a listener. And in most cases, being a listener is just what the name implies, listening. Oftentimes, people just need an honest, supportive, and non-judgmental person with whom they can talk to and explore options. No matter the situation, whether you've noticed your friend seems to be struggling recently and you want to have a conversation with them about it, or if they've approached you to talk about something they're going through, we're going to talk about a few key ideas to have in mind when approaching a possibly challenging conversation. First, start with an unconditional invitation. Say something to the person that suggests you are ready and willing to listen. That can be as simple as just saying, I'm here to listen to whatever you have to say. Extend the invitation so that they know you're willing to talk about whatever they may be feeling right now. But with this unconditional invitation does come one condition on your end, and that is knowing when you won't be able to have a real conversation with someone. Maybe it's been a long day and your emotional gas tank is running on empty. That's okay. Be honest with yourself and the person to whom you're speaking, and be sure, if you feel willing and able, that they know you're inviting them to have a conversation without any of those conditions. The next is encouragement to continue. Make sure your friend is reminded that you want to hear more about what they're saying and that they aren't burdening you by saying these things. Consider using phrases like, go on, really? What happened next? Third, be curious. We're all living in our own individual stories and you never know what someone may be going through. So be curious and ask questions to really get to know what this person is experiencing. Approach any conversation of support without judgment. Even if you may not agree with how that person got into their situation, what you must agree on in the moment is what they're feeling and the emotions they're experiencing. Validate that. Accept silence. Learn to be comfortable with silence and allow your friend the time to open up at their own rate and gather their own thoughts into words. Saying nothing is better than just reacting and filling the silence with nonsense. Lastly, keep the goals in mind. Don't be afraid to ask, what are you looking to gain out of this conversation, or how can I best support you right now? None of us are experts, so there's no shame in asking what we can do to be a better supporter. Now, I'll briefly mention some things to avoid when approaching these conversations. First, usually if someone is coming to you to have an empathetic kind of conversation, they may just be looking to vent and express their feelings rather than have their problems solved in that moment. It can be super invalidating to spill your feelings to someone only for them to suggest a menial fix to the solution. A lot of times we don't have quick fixes, and suggesting we do might be harmful to that person. Avoid giving empty reassurance. Reassuring words are not helpful and convey that the person's feelings are not real or important. You may stifle that person's feelings and concerns by using phrases such as, I wouldn't worry about that, or everything's going to be alright. Rejecting or disapproving of a person's feelings isn't ever appropriate in this situation. Even if you disagree with the circumstances that got them to feel these feelings, it takes a lot to open up to someone, so respect that vulnerability and honor the emotions that they're sharing with you right now. Avoid asking question after question. After all, it is their story and they're sharing what they want to share. And with that said, don't expect them to divulge every detail. Maybe they aren't in a place to do so yet, and that's 100% okay. This conversation could be the first step in a huge awakening for them. Now, with keeping these ideas in mind, both the things to do and not to do when approaching a vulnerable conversation, Courtney is going to talk about some more concrete skills you can use when having these tough conversations.
When it comes to talking with a peer who might be going through a crisis or struggling, we focus on 6 good contact techniques that help demonstrate genuineness and your presence. The first technique is reflection and paraphrasing. This is the process of using similar words and phrases that the person you're talking to is using. Not only does this help double check that you're understanding what the other person is trying to say, but it shows that you're truly listening and trying to put yourself in their shoes. It's important to make sure that you're not parroting or just repeating word for word what they just said to you. Similarly, it's important to make sure that you're not putting words in someone else's mouth. Instead, you're just paraphrasing the feelings that they've already expressed to you. In a normal conversation, this technique could be you saying, "It sounds like this," or "What I'm hearing is this." The next technique is to use strong feeling words. By using more specific words instead of just sad, happy, angry, it helps the person you're talking to understand what they're feeling better. You can get creative with your word choices because it will help the person you're talking to reflect on their feelings, and it adds a degree of intensity. Be cautious of using maximizer or minimizer words like very, so, really, kind of, or a little. Instead of saying very sad, say devastated. A little upset, say uneasy. Another good contact technique is validation. Validation helps you recognize, normalize, and give who you're talking to permission to have the feelings that they're feeling. Sometimes when someone is venting about something that they're going through, they may feel like there's something wrong with them for feeling a certain way. Through validating, it helps someone feel okay for feeling. Instead of just saying, "I understand," say, "It's understandable to feel that way. It makes sense to feel overwhelmed and upset. It's completely normal to be angry." One thing to note is that you don't want to validate negative or unhealthy behaviors. Instead, make sure you focus on validating the feeling. Using tentifiers, or phrases that help label emotions on situations, is another technique for talking with a peer. An example of this would be saying, "It sounds like you are feeling betrayed about your boyfriend going behind your back." It helps you avoid making assumptions about how someone is feeling, and it also invites them to share more about what they're going through without explicitly asking. With this, make sure that you're still using phrases like, "It sounds like you are feeling this way," rather than "you are feeling this way." Another way to invite someone to share and expand how they're feeling is to ask open-ended questions. This is especially valuable because it helps you learn more about someone's thoughts and feelings and allows them to expand more. Keep in mind that you don't want to ask questions solely out of curiosity. Ask because you really want to understand, and let someone open up more. Also, make sure that you're asking questions one at a time. You don't want to overwhelm them. You also don't want it to come across in an accusatory manner or as an interrogation. Try to avoid questions like why or specifics. The last good contact technique is to use strength IDs. Talking about your struggles can be especially hard for people. Make sure you point out the positives and remind them of their strengths. This shows the person that you're talking to that they have positive qualities and the resilience to fight through their struggles. Empower your peers by saying, "It was brave of you for sharing this with me today," or "It's so inspiring to see you open up about a traumatic loss." Using strength IDs helps empower who you're talking to and leads to a productive conversation.
And now, just to wrap up, we want to first thank you all for attending our session virtually, and also acknowledge that while we hope this was a great first step in your journey of learning what it means to be a better, empathetic peer listener, we also know that there are tons of other resources out there that can help you continue in that educational journey. If you do have any other questions specifically about the things we mentioned, or want to learn more about some of our findings and the importance of peer support, feel free to contact us at any of those methods. Our email is wsndirectors@umich.edu, or any of the social media. Or if you're interested in potentially considering starting your own support network at your own campus, please get in touch. We'd love to connect you with the support network and help you figure out what those first steps may look like for you. But again, thank you so much for being here and listening, and thank you for the listening you're doing every day to be a good peer supporter.